Dramatic moments at the Calgary International Airport this morning. The two Michaels are back home. You see there Michael Spavor waving to supporters after departing from the plane that brought him and Michael Kovrig back from China. Meanwhile, Kovrig is back on a plane. He's now en route to Toronto, where he'll be reunited with his family and supporters a little later in this hour. The plane carrying the two Canadians touching down in Calgary at around 6 a.m. local time, 8 a.m. Eastern. The Prime Minister was there to meet the plane when it arrived. Spavor and Kovrig flew into Calgary just over 12 hours after they were released by Chinese authorities, ending more than 1,000 days in detention. I'm Michael Serapio. You're watching CBC News Network, and just moments ago we heard from Michael Kovrig's wife, Vina Najibullah, and his sister, Ariana. They spoke with our Lorenda Redekop as they wait for Kovrig's arrival at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. Take a listen.
Really to describe the emotions that have been going through all of us for the last 24 hours. Joy, relief, overwhelming gratitude for everyone who has worked to make this day happen. I'm so happy that we're here. I want to say thank you to Ambassador Barton and to everybody in Beijing Embassy and Washington and Ottawa for the work that they have done to bring Michael home to us. Ariana, Michael's sister, and I are here to welcome Michael to Toronto. It will be a difficult few days of just reintegration and healing. Michael wants to share, I spoke to him earlier today, and he wants to say thank you as well for all the prayers, all the support, the messages. He has been briefed about it all. Ambassador Barton has told him what we and the whole country has been doing to get him out, and people around the world, his supporters around the world, and it is overwhelming. I find myself at a loss for words because the moment is so incredible. It's finally here. After 1,020 days, it is finally here. Michael is in Canada. He is safe. He is healthy. He is happy to be back, and we're happy to welcome him just shortly here in a few hours. So a few minutes, sorry, not hours. Sorry. It's a blur. I'm sorry, I haven't slept.
We're also a little in shock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me how you are.
I'm a little lost for words. It's very emotional, and it's going to take me a while to process this, and I can't wait to actually see him and hug him, and a lot. It's a lot. It's amazing, but I'm still a little in shock. I think we've waited so long for this.
But the day has come, and Michael is here, and he's healthy. He wants to talk to the media, but he won't be able to do that right away. We need a little time. And I just wanted to share from him the gratitude that he feels and the fact that this long journey, he's finally home. We're happy to welcome him, and when time comes, I'm sure he'll be speaking himself directly to you guys to share his experiences and his stories. But for now, we just wanted to say thank you.
And over these last 3 years, did he realize just how big a deal this was in Canada and what was happening here?
It's hard to know.
We'll
find out, but we just had a FaceTime with him from Calgary, and he just sort of says it's like coming into another world, right? So he's free, but it's also a different world out here post-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic.
It's going to be a lot for him to take in, a lot for him to process. It's going to be a long road to comprehension and recovery. So.
Yeah. Now you were on FaceTime with your brother. What was it like to see him?
Well, really shocking because I didn't know who was calling, and it's a good thing I answered because I wasn't ready for it, and it was amazing. It was so amazing to see his face. He looks really good, a little pale, but he looks really good. And I can't wait to actually see him in the flesh.
And again, that was Michael Kovrig's sister, Ariana. Before her, his wife, speaking moments ago, right now waiting for his arrival at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. So for more, let's now go to Ottawa and bring in the CBC's David Thurton. So David, walk us through a bit more about Spavor and Kovrig's release.
Yeah, so it caught them by surprise. It caught a lot of people here in Ottawa by surprise. Usually we get a heads up when big news like this is going to break. But yeah, we learned, like the rest of Canada, through the Prime Minister when he made an announcement last night that Michael Kovrig, Michael Spavor will be coming home. And they arrived home this morning, at 6 a.m. local time in Calgary. They arrived at Calgary International Airport. The Prime Minister greeted the two Canadians as they got off a Challenger jet. That's a government jet that usually ferries VIPs. He was there to meet them. They were all masked. He kind of gave them a fist bump. And from what we can see on camera, they had a brief conversation. There were a number of officials who were also on the ground, including Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Garneau. Spavor, who you see there, then was whisked away in a vehicle. He is from Alberta, so presumably he's going to reunite with his family members in that area. Kovrig, on the other hand, who is a former diplomat, he continued on that Challenger jet to Toronto, where he is expected to reunite with his family members, including his wife, Veena Najibullah. They're separated, but she considers herself his wife, and he will reunite with her, his sister, and whatnot, and begin that process of what she called reintegration after both of them spent more than 1,000 days in prison, Michael. Both happy to be back home, I'm sure.
Okay, David, thank you for that. Our David Thurton in Ottawa. Well, let's invite to the program now Colin Robertson. Of course, you know him very well from the weekends. He's a former diplomat, now Vice President and Fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. He is also in Ottawa. Colin, good to see you again. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you again, Michael. It is a happy day. Thanksgiving come early.
Absolutely. But, so much to talk about here. And I want to begin with the denial that we kept hearing from China time and time again. The People's Republic denying the fact that there was a connection between the Meng case and the detention of the two Michaels. I've said it before, I don't believe anyone in Canada believed that. But is there now any doubt whatsoever that China was engaging in hostage diplomacy here?
None at all. And that's why I think what we've got to do is we've got to put teeth to the arbitrary detention declaration that it was our initiative to prevent this from ever happening again. The lesson of this is never again. After the First World War, we banned chemical weapons. Hostage diplomacy should not be part of international relations. We've moved into a difficult period of geopolitics with a rising China, and I think we've got to set certain ground rules, and one of them is don't do hostage taking.
So we have to set those ground rules, but right now they don't exist. As you say, at least they don't have the teeth that is in that document. So how should Canadians be feeling about that, I wonder? Because there are those in this country who do business in China, those who travel to China. They now know that China is willing to use Canadian citizens as pawns. So how can anyone feel safe about traveling or doing business with the People's Republic right now?
Well, I think you have to be prudent, but I would also say this ends a chapter in what is an important and long-running relationship with China. It's time for us now to re-engage. Our trade is still very significant. We're selling all sorts of resources. We buy an awful lot from China. It's a major trading partner. More than that, before the pandemic, we had over 100,000 Chinese students in Canada. That people-to-people connection is really important for us to keep going, especially as we move into this new era with two superpowers, the United States, which are our friend and ally, and certainly President Biden demonstrated that he cares about Canada because there were three parties in this negotiation. Canada, absolutely full credit to Ambassador Barton, Ambassador Kristen Hillman in the United States, and to the whole diplomatic team at our embassy in Beijing, the Deputy Chief of Mission, Jim Nepko and company. They've been working. This has been their top item. I was in China on October 29 before everything shut down for a conference and saw Jim and the team then, and this was their top priority, and Ambassador Barton has said that. So this is a triumph also for quiet diplomacy involving three countries at a difficult time in relationships. But my sense is that President Biden, while he wants to constrain China, also recognizes you don't want to go to kind of the Cold War you had with the Soviet Union. You're going to have to engage with China. And I think President Xi, who must have given the okay for this, must feel the same way. Tensions have been escalating of late. South China Sea, the pressures on Taiwan, that we've got to constrain. But we've also got to engage with China because we've got really big issues at stake. Climate conference is coming up. We can't do climate mitigation without China. But we can't get to the base, to the root of future pandemics, because many of them do come out of China. It's just the way the world is built, unless China's going to play into this. So we've got to engage China We should take this as an opportunity. We clearly have been engaging because this extraordinary feat of diplomacy took place and was kept quiet. It reminds me in some ways of the Tehran caper, and when we helped get the Americans out of Tehran, that you had the three sides working together. I think take that momentum and move forward. We've got to engage with China and make for a better relationship. And we also owe a debt of thanks to the United States.
Okay, but you say that, this opportunity to engage China once again, but, there are big decisions to be made, as you alluded to, some very uncomfortable one. Primarily, I'm thinking about Huawei's involvement in the 5G network. Right now, Canada is the only member of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance that's not banning Huawei. So is Canada actually now freer to make a decision now that two Michaels are back home? Or do you think this re-engagement will actually affect that?
No, Michael, I think that decision's been made. The platform for future telecommunications is so vital for our security that Huawei will not be allowed to participate because they won't meet the terms and regulations. We should take a page from what New Zealand did. New Zealand said, look, here are the terms under which you can bid for this. Didn't name Huawei, but there was no way Huawei would meet the transparency requirements or the state-owned enterprise provisions. That's what we should do. And I think if you look at the big telecommunications companies, they're already making their decisions. They're not buying from Huawei. They know which way things are going. So I don't think we have to worry about Huawei, nor do I think the Chinese have held that up as a kind of, this is quid pro quo.
Okay, but what about China's human rights abuses against the Uyghurs, though, or the crackdown on Hong Kong, on the Hong Kong democracy movement? Will the Canadian government speak more forcefully now on those issues, do you think?
I hope so. I think that's something that, this has been a human rights issue, that the two Michaels, that their rights were extraordinarily abused, as have been the Uyghurs. Look what's taking place in Hong Kong, where there's 300,000 Canadians living there. What goes on in Tibet. No, I do think that human rights, that's a big divide between open systems and closed systems. And I think the big challenges ahead are not between right and left, but rather between open and closed. And we're an open system, China's a closed system, but we still have to engage.
Now, in terms of a path forward, you spoke about it a little bit, but hopefully you can build on it for us right now, because Canada's handling of the detention of the two Michaels, as you say, quiet diplomacy was very much in the works in the background. What does that say about the path that Canada must move along now, given the fact that we are not a superpower?
Well, we're not a superpower, but we're a member of the G7, the G20. We have a significant Chinese population. We have close family ties with China, so we can be a player in the key relationship is really now the superpowers, and they're moving to they're in a confrontation. Can we be helpful? I think that's what diplomacy is all about. We've seen the demonstration of what our embassy can do in terms of freeing the two Michaels. We've got a lot of people on the ground there. We have all these family ties. I think we can be the traditional role Canada has played is that of helpful fixer. Never forget, it was Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, took the courageous step back in 1971, 50 years ago, to 1970 to recognize China at a time when China's being shunned. But China's a quarter of the world's populations. We can't go back to that situation. We have to now engage. We don't forget human rights is of paramount importance to us. We've got to remind the Chinese that we don't like how they behave, and we've got to hold them accountable, and that means speaking out. I was quite disappointed that vote in the House of Commons when everybody was there except the Canadian cabinet. Well, I think that's being too cautious. You have to stand up for what you believe in, and I believe that's always been a hallmark of Canadian foreign policy since we were one of the architects of the Declaration on Human Rights, for goodness sake, at the United Nations when it was set up.
Colin Robertson, always good to speak with you. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Michael.